Is religion dying out? Across the globe, churches are emptying. Religious affiliation is declining, and younger generations are identifying as nones, people with no religious affiliation at all. Is this just a cultural shift, or are we witnessing something bigger? The end of religion as we know it. In this video, we'll explore why religion seems to be in decline, what historical patterns tell us, and whether faith will ever truly disappear or simply evolve. Stick around because this is not just a story about religion, it's about identity, society, and the future of belief itself. Over the past few decades, major surveys and census data from countries like the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia have shown a sharp rise in people identifying as non-religious. In the US alone, Pew Research shows that over 30% of adults now identify as religiously unaffiliated. In Western Europe, traditional religions have seen a steady decline in both participation and belief. What's driving this shift? Factors like access to education, the rise of scientific literacy, and the increased emphasis on personal freedom are all part of the equation. Young people, especially, are choosing spirituality or humanism over organized religion, often viewing institutional faiths as outdated or even harmful. However, this decline isn't universal. Many countries in Africa, Latin America, and parts of Asia are seeing stable or even rising religious participation. So the question remains, is religion really ending, or is it simply shifting its stronghold? The modern world has been shaped by logic, reason, and empirical evidence. Thanks to the internet, global access to knowledge is more widespread than ever before. Scientific breakthroughs, from evolution to cosmology to neuroscience, offer explanations for existence that don't rely on divine intervention. This knowledge revolution has fostered a skeptical mindset, especially among younger generations. Platforms like Reddit and YouTube are full of ex-religious communities sharing deconversion stories, critiques of doctrine, and ethical discussions that challenge traditional religious morals. As technology continues to advance, more people are finding meaning through reason rather than revelation. In this context, religion often feels less like truth and more like tradition, a relic of humanity's attempt to explain the unknown. While formal religious institutions are declining, belief isn't necessarily disappearing. Many are leaving organized religion not because they stop believing in something greater, but because they seek a more personal or flexible form of spirituality. Terms like spiritual but not religious are on the rise, as people mix elements of mindfulness, meditation, and even astrology into personalized belief systems. Religious rituals are also finding new homes: yoga studios, wellness retreats, even virtual reality churches. In some ways, religion is not vanishing, it's evolving. The community aspect of faith, the search for meaning, and the need for moral frameworks still exist. They're just being reimagined for the modern age. So while traditional pews may be empty, the human drive for connection and purpose continues to find new expressions. In response to secularization, some religious groups are doubling down. We've seen the rise of religious fundamentalism and political movements fueled by faith-based ideologies. From Christian nationalism in the US to conservative Islamic movements in the Middle East, religion is being weaponized in political and cultural wars. This reactionary stance isn't a sign of strength, it's often a symptom of fear. As globalism, feminism, and LGBTQ+ rights become more mainstream, many traditionalists feel their way of life is under threat. Religion, in these cases, becomes a tool for resistance against change. It creates polarization, not just between religious and secular people, but within faith communities themselves. Instead of ending, religion is being reshaped by the very forces that threaten it. Despite the decline, it's unlikely that religion will ever fully disappear. Throughout human history, belief in higher powers has served deep psychological and social needs, from coping with mortality to building community and moral order. These needs haven't gone away. In fact, during times of crisis, like pandemics, wars, or economic collapse, people often turn back to religion for comfort and hope. Additionally, birth rates in religious families tend to be higher, which can sustain religious populations over generations. Ultimately, religion may not die, but it will continue to adapt. We may see more decentralized, inclusive, and digital expressions of faith. The key takeaway? What's ending may not be religion itself, but the dominance of traditional, institutional religion as the only framework for belief. Humans are wired for meaning. From our earliest ancestors to today's most modern societies, belief in something greater than ourselves helps us cope with uncertainty, mortality, and suffering. Religion often provides a sense of control, hope, and moral structure, tools to manage the chaos of life. Even in secular societies, people turn to belief systems, whether it's in science, politics, personal growth, or community values. These become new religions in function, even if they're not recognized as such. Psychology shows us that the human brain craves narrative and purpose, making it unlikely that belief will ever vanish entirely. It just changes form. For many, religion is not just about belief. It's deeply tied to identity, ethnicity, and tradition. Being Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, or Christian may be less about spiritual conviction and more about family, culture, and history. In multicultural societies, religious identity can also act as a form of resistance, a way to preserve heritage in the face of assimilation or discrimination. Even if religious practice declines, the cultural imprint often remains. Religion becomes a badge of belonging, not necessarily a set of doctrines to be followed. So even as faith weakens, identity can keep religion alive in surprising ways. As Western religious traditions decline, many are turning toward Eastern philosophies, Buddhism, Taoism, and other non-theistic systems that emphasize mindfulness, balance, and inner peace. Unlike traditional Abrahamic religions, these paths often do not require belief in a god, but focus on practice and personal transformation. Meditation, karma, and reincarnation are becoming mainstream concepts in Western culture. Apps like Headspace and Calm incorporate these ideas, often stripped of their religious roots. This shift highlights a broader trend. People are seeking spiritual fulfillment without dogma. It's not a loss of religion, but a shift toward practical spirituality over institutional authority. Technology isn't just pulling people away from traditional religion, it's also creating new religious spaces. From virtual churches to AI-powered gurus, faith communities are emerging online in forms we've never seen before. Live-streamed sermons, prayer apps, online confessionals, and even metaverse temples are now a reality. These innovations allow for flexibility and global connection, especially for people who feel excluded or isolated from traditional religious spaces. This digital reimagining of faith could actually increase participation by making religion more accessible. So while the format may change, the essence of gathering for shared belief and support persists, even on a screen. Pop culture is shaping modern belief in powerful ways. From Marvel movies exploring gods and multiverses, to celebrities promoting manifestation and spiritual wellness, entertainment often fills the void left by organized religion. Books, films, and music present moral dilemmas, epic narratives, and archetypes that resonate with ancient religious stories. Meanwhile, influencers on social media often act like modern-day prophets, spreading lifestyle gospels to millions of followers. This cultural shift suggests that belief hasn't disappeared, it's just moved. Where once we turned to preachers, we now look to artists, celebrities, and thought leaders to help us navigate life's big questions. Atheism and agnosticism are growing, particularly in educated urban populations. For many, rejecting religion is a statement of intellectual independence, a decision to live based on evidence, reason, and critical thinking rather than faith. This movement often overlaps with secular humanism, which emphasizes ethics, human rights, and the betterment of society without invoking the divine. In many ways, this is a new moral framework, one that still seeks to do good, but without the supernatural. However, atheism is not always hostile to religion. Many atheists appreciate the art, culture, and history that religion has contributed to humanity, even if they reject its metaphysical claims. Some studies suggest that religious involvement is linked to better mental health, especially when it provides community, routine, and a sense of purpose. On the flip side, others have found that religious trauma, often from authoritarian or fundamentalist upbringings, can cause anxiety, depression, or guilt. As people leave religion, they often seek new mental health frameworks. Therapy, coaching, and online support communities are replacing the traditional role of clergy for many. But the emotional needs for forgiveness, belonging, and hope remain the same. This suggests religion isn't disappearing, but being redistributed across new institutions and practices. Public education has played a key role in secularization. In many developed countries, religion has been removed from the classroom, replaced by science, critical thinking, and ethical reasoning. While some religious schools still thrive, many children are now growing up without exposure to religious teachings, at least not in school settings. This generational shift is crucial. It means kids are learning to understand the world without defaulting to religious explanations. This doesn't mean they'll never be religious, but it does mean belief is no longer automatic. For many, faith becomes a choice rather than a given, and many are choosing differently. Women have long been central to religious communities as organizers, caregivers, and moral anchors. But many religions maintain patriarchal structures that limit women's roles or rights. As women gain education, autonomy, and leadership in secular spaces, they are increasingly challenging religious traditions that exclude or subordinate them. Feminist critiques of religion, from within and outside, are driving many women away from institutions they see as oppressive. This isn't necessarily a rejection of faith, but a demand for equity. Unless religions evolve to meet this challenge, they risk losing half their base in future generations. Few cultural shifts have tested religious institutions like the rise of LGBTQ+ visibility and rights. For many, traditional religious teachings on sexuality and gender are incompatible with modern understandings of human identity and equality. This disconnect has driven countless people, especially younger ones, away from churches that preach exclusion. In contrast, inclusive religious communities are gaining traction, offering a blend of faith and acceptance that resonates more with modern values. The struggle between doctrine and dignity is forcing religions to confront hard questions. Those that adapt may survive. Those that don't risk irrelevance or backlash. Even without belief in a deity, people still crave ritual. Weddings, funerals, coming-of-age ceremonies, these events give structure to our lives and mark transitions that matter. In secular societies, these rituals are being reimagined. Non-religious weddings, humanist funerals, and even naming ceremonies for babies are on the rise. They serve the same purpose as religious rituals: community, recognition, and meaning. This evolution suggests that while dogma may fade, ritual endures. Humans will always need ways to celebrate, mourn, and make sense of life, with or without religion. Religions have always used stories, parables, legends, and myths to convey deep truths. Even as institutional religion declines, storytelling remains central to human culture. Think of modern myths: Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Matrix. These aren't just entertainment. They explore sacrifice, identity, good versus evil, and redemption. They're spiritual stories in new clothes. This reveals a powerful truth. Even in a secular age, we need myths to guide us. Religion may lose its formal structures, but the need for transcendent storytelling remains as strong as ever. As migration increases worldwide, so does religious diversity. In urban centers, people encounter beliefs from across the globe, challenging old assumptions and creating new questions. This exposure often sparks interfaith dialogue, curiosity, or even religious blending. At the same time, it can cause friction as different belief systems collide in public life. Globalization is transforming how we see religion, no longer as a single dominant worldview, but as one of many lenses through which people experience the world. This pluralism forces society to rethink how religion fits into shared public spaces. When religion turns violent or repressive, it often pushes people away, not just from that group, but from religion in general. Terrorism, discrimination, and abuse scandals have severely damaged the credibility of religious institutions. This backlash fuels secularization, especially among younger people who associate religion with harm rather than healing. In this way, extremism doesn't strengthen faith, it weakens it by driving moderates to distance themselves entirely. If religion is to survive, it must actively confront and reject extremism rather than tolerate it in the name of tradition or unity. As humanity explores space and plans for life beyond Earth, philosophical and spiritual questions reemerge. Will religion go with us to Mars? Can belief in God survive contact with alien life? Already, astronauts have held communion in orbit, and religious groups have discussed how to adapt rituals for zero gravity. Some even argue space exploration is a spiritual endeavor, an awe-filled journey into the unknown. Religion may evolve in unimaginable ways as our context expands beyond Earth. The search for meaning, whether in cathedrals or cosmos, is likely to remain part of the human story. Religion has always had an economic dimension, from tithes and donations to massive real estate holdings and tax exemptions. Megachurches, religious universities, and global religious organizations manage billions in assets. As religious participation declines, so does financial support. This economic squeeze is forcing many institutions to downsize, merge, or close entirely. Empty churches are being sold or repurposed into restaurants, libraries, or condos. But there's also pushback, concerns over financial transparency and how religious wealth is managed. The economic power of religion is being questioned like never before, and this scrutiny may reshape how future generations view faith-based institutions. Climate change has sparked a new kind of global consciousness, one that some describe as quasi-religious. The movement has rituals, recycling, protests, prophets, scientists, activists, and a moral imperative to save the planet. For many, especially youth, environmentalism has become a primary source of meaning, urgency, and community, roles once filled by religion. Even traditional faiths are responding, with green theology gaining traction in churches, mosques, and temples. This shift shows how secular movements can take on spiritual significance. As old religions decline, new belief systems rooted in ethics, responsibility, and collective action are rising to take their place. What happens to religion when technology starts to challenge the very idea of the soul? Transhumanism, the belief in enhancing human capabilities through tech, raises profound spiritual questions. If we can upload consciousness, merge with AI, or extend life indefinitely, what does that mean for concepts like heaven, reincarnation, or karma? Religious ideas about life, death, and afterlife may be fundamentally redefined.